podcast where we compare theme park offerings from coast to coast. We don't always see eye to eye, but in the end, we'll try. I'm your host, CJ, and I'm joined by Alli. Alli, how are you doing tonight?
Hi, CJ. I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well, getting nervous for the marathon, which I think by the time this episode comes out, I'll have already run.
Yes, this episode comes out in January. You'll have finished a marathon by then.
Oh my
Yay!
gosh. Hopefully I don't end up on the sweeper bus. We'll see. We'll see. Well, today we are joined by a special guest, Johnny J from the DMSW Podcast. Welcome, Johnny.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Cool, cool. Well, today what we're doing is something a little different. We're doing a trip report from somebody who is, a Walt Disney World visitor semi-regularly at least, and he went to Disneyland Resort recently for the first time. So we're trying to get his perspective on how that trip went. So we're going to start off with some quick questions, just really easy questions. So first, how often do you visit Disney World and who do you usually go with?
Okay, so traveling to the parks, we started off trying to do it like every other year, but we've fallen so much in love with going with the kids, and that's who we go with. I go with my wife Stacy, and we have 6 kids,
Oh, wow.
which is insane, I know. But we have 6 kids from ages 13 all the way down to 3, and the funny story is like I used to be like that dad that was like, no, we don't need to go to Disney yet, like we'll wait until they're older, just wait. And then eventually my wife convinced me, and she's like, you got to stop thinking about like they're not going to remember it, or it's not gonna like it won't be worth it for them because they're so young. And she's like, think about it as us as the parents, like we're going to get the experience is us watching that magic through them. So she kind of won me over there. And that first trip with the kids, just like it was like the Grinch cartoon where his heart
Oh,
grows 3 times the size. Like
oh.
just seeing all my kids have all these experiences in the park, they completely won me over on that first trip. And we went from like, let's wait, and now I'm the guy that's starting my own Disney podcast and being like, can we go twice this year? Do you think we can go twice this year? So yeah, we go for the kids. It's all about going for them and to enjoy the magic with them in person and see it on their face.
That's
Oh,
awesome. That's so great. And it's totally fun to go with your kids. I know Allie doesn't have kids, but I know she talks about like, I want to go on test track with Felix with my
I
son.
really do want to go on
Yeah.
test track with Felix.
It's so much fun with your kids. It's great. So when did you visit Disneyland Resort?
Disneyland Resort, the first time we got to there was in May of this past year. My One of my sons is a massive Spider-Man fan. So last year for Christmas, the one big present my wife got me, which she's like, listen, the pandemic was horrible. Like we didn't get to do anything fun. Like this is like a once in a lifetime thing. Like go out there with Hunter, get some one-on-one time with just you and him, and really enjoy the Avengers campus and let him do everything Spider-Man under the sun. So we went like all out. He got Spider-Man clothes to wear, and he got the web shooter to use on the ride, and we did the web slingers ride probably 12 times while we were there. So it was all about him and getting as much Spider-Man time in as we could. So
That's
it was well worth
amazing.
it. It was awesome.
Was it just
That's
the two of you?
Yep, just the two of us. Yeah.
cool. And where did you guys stay?
So we stayed like maybe I think it was about 3 blocks away. It was the Delta Hotel by
Okay.
Marriott, and it
Yep.
worked out. I was kind of going through the like 40 different hotel options that they all list right there through the Disneyland, and I'm like, I've never been, so I'm like, I don't know if any are like in a bad part of town, good part of town, what the travel is like to and
Hmm.
from the parks, how that all goes. And when I got to that Delta Hotel, I mean, you see the Marriott name and you assume that it's going to be pretty decent there, but they had the city bus that comes by that area it's part of the hotel price. So we
Oh,
got to
cool.
jump right on the local bus, and it took us right to the park, and it ended up working out. We literally had the very first bus stop when you left the park too. So the end of
Oh,
that
that's
long night,
convenient.
it was like the very first bench. We could grab it every night and just sit there, and that bus would be by every few minutes, and we'd be back to the hotel in no time. So it worked out pretty
Cool.
well.
That's so
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. And there are so
Yeah.
many hotels to choose from right there. It's a lot different than Disney World in that way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, going to Walt Disney World as many times as I have, like you kind of feel like, oh, like I know the ins and outs of every hotel. I know exactly where they are. I know where the Skyliner goes, where's my best spot to do this and that. And this was just a like complete tourist. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know anything about what
Yeah.
I was doing and what was
Yeah.
the right move. So
Yeah, it's hard. And, when I talk to people who are visiting one coast or the other, they ask, well, should I stay on property or off property? And for Disney World, I usually recommend on property, but for Disneyland, I'm like, unless it's in your budget, I would probably stay off property. So
yep.
do you think it was the right decision for you guys to stay off property?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, the bus could not have worked out any easier or any better. It literally felt like being in Disney World at a hotel. Like we'd wake up in the morning, we'd come down, leave the front door of the hotel, and the bus stop was just a little tiny short walk away, and it would take us directly right to the front gate.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
so it worked out perfect. And just like you said too, we looked at the Disneyland hotels first, and the price was just insane,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
crazy how expensive it was. So yeah, we opted for offsite.
Yeah, honestly, the only times I've really stayed at the hotels on property there were when I was a cast member. So we got like a pretty big discount. And then like
Mhm.
we did my bachelorette party there, Allie's bachelorette party. So we split the
Mhm.
room so many ways and just
Yeah.
made it
And
work
you were
out like
also a
that.
cast member during that time too.
Yeah, so it was like it worked out to like $30 or $40 a person to stay one
And
night.
Oh, cool.
and we've also stayed there when our parents were paying.
Yes.
So
It's a little
it's
different.
That
convenient.
always helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so how long was your trip overall and like how many days did you do in the parks, that kind of thing?
Yep. So we flew. We're on the East Coast. We're in Massachusetts. So we flew out on a Monday and we flew back on a Friday. So we had 3 days to do in the park. So we set it up for DCA on the Tuesday and the Thursday, and then Disneyland on the Wednesday. Because, like
Okay.
I said, it was all about Spider-Man and Avengers Campus for my son. So we figured better to do 2 days set up at DCA just in case you get rain or just
Mhm.
horrible crowds or something like that. So we opted for the 2 days at DCA, and it ended up working out because that's where the majority of the rides that he really liked. So it worked out
Hmm,
perfectly.
cool.
And your tickets were one park per day then?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you I think I know the answer to this. Did you use Genie Plus?
We did not use Genie Plus. As if you've listened to my podcast, it sounds like you have. I'm definitely not a fan of Genie Plus. So I get that people need to use it, and we have used it in the past. I did a one-on-one trip with my wife and a one-on-one trip with my son, and we have used it before. Just because when it's crowded, you really don't have an option. If you want to get on a decent amount of rides, they got you over the barrel there. You kind of have to do
Yeah.
it. So but for this trip, the crowd wasn't too bad. So we did a couple of individual lightning lanes just because he had never been on Rise of the Resistance
Mm.
before. And that first day in the park, it was like we couldn't get through the front door fast enough and buy the individual lightning lane for web slingers because I just was so panicked that we'd spend all this time and effort and money to get out here and something would happen, the ride would break or something would go on and he'd miss it. So I just wanted to make sure whatever the fastest option was to get us on that ride so we could check that box and say, okay, he at least got it once. Then
Mhm.
we did that. So we did that individual lightning lane for that right away. But
Yeah.
it's such a different experience using Genie Plus in Disneyland as opposed to Disney World. I feel like in Disney World, I felt like all the big rides are gone within like the first literally 5 minutes of the morning. If you don't grab like Slinky Dog for Hollywood or some of those other big rides, your return time is already 7, 8 o'clock at night, like
Oh
towards
yeah.
the end of
Mhm.
the night. They just go so fast. But in Disneyland, even though we weren't using Genie Plus, I kept looking at it just to kind of get the experience of it. And when, like I said, when we used those individual lightning lanes a few different times too, it was just so different. You could grab the phone and just pick individual lightning lane for Rise of Resistance, and within a half an hour, you could have whatever return time you wanted. So
Oh wow.
just
Wow.
it felt a lot different than when I have used it in Disney World.
Why do you think that is? Because we've well, I don't really use Genie Plus here, and we didn't use it when we visited Disneyland. I'm just curious, like, why do you think that's the case?
I don't know what it is. If it's just maybe I'm guessing like maybe there's been more locals going to Disneyland and they're not in a rush for like trying to hit 12 rides every time they go to the park. They have their 3 or 4 that they want to do, and it's more like the social aspect of just kind of going with your friends and taking your time. So if it's a 45-minute wait for Incredicoaster, they're like, whatever. I'm just gonna sit in line and just do it. It seems crazy to spend 15 or 25 or whatever it was just to do a few rides. Maybe that's the only thing I could think of. And like I said, it did feel like the crowd levels were I wouldn't say it didn't feel like it was a ghost town by any means, but it definitely felt like a lighter crowd level day, and I would assume that that had something to do with it too.
Yeah, May is generally a good time to go. The schools in California are generally still in May, so you
Yep.
picked a good time to go. Good weather and good on the school schedule.
Yeah, we were going through those crowd calendars with a fine-tooth comb trying
I
to
don't blame you.
it's like we were planning the moon landing, trying to find the exact hours of which days would be best.
That's a good way to put it. I feel like I've been through that when I was planning vacations here. There's so many things you have to look for.
So what would you say your top 3 rides were at Disneyland?
At Disneyland, I would say like our number one favorite was Big Thunder. It feels like they just do the magic just a little bit extra. And like the way I tried to describe it when I came back and was talking to people about it was I feel like if there's Imagineers in Disneyland and they're designing their rides and they go to their boss and they're like, okay, we could do the ride like this, but if you just let us spend a little bit more, we could do this, and this, and we'll make it so much better. And I feel like in Disneyland, every time that boss is like, do it. This is Walt's Park. That's what this is all about. You got to go that extra mile. I'm so proud of you. Do it, do it, do it. And I feel like in Disney World, now that I've seen both sides of it, and we really try to hit as many of those duplicate rides as we could to do that contrast and compare. Now that I look back on it, it definitely feels like in Walt Disney World, when they go to that boss, they're like, well, that's good enough. Like,
Mm,
we don't need to go that extra mile. Like, there's plenty of magic here. We don't need to add the extra lights and the smoke in the
mhm.
Big Thunder cave
Mhm.
there. We don't need to have the little waterfall there on that first hill going up. So it's it's not that Walt Disney World like feels like the magic is gone, or it's not even the same park. It just feels like it didn't go quite as far down the Imagineering road
Yeah.
that Disneyland went.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think Big Thunder at Disneyland was refurbished like 2015, 2016-ish. It was around the time I was
Mhm.
working there. So they may have used, I'm not 100% sure, but they may have used the 60th anniversary as an excuse to like plus it a little more.
Yeah.
Which Disneyland has a tendency to do with their anniversaries. They'll
Yeah.
say, "Oh, the anniversary is coming up. Let's add this, let's add that." And it's kind of disappointing to see Disney World not do those things. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and it's with our trip that we just did in August, that was our first time taking all 6 kids down. And again, I'm not knocking the park by any means or saying like the magic is gone or whatever, but it didn't feel like the same Disney World that we're used to. It definitely, you could feel the like that aura of like it's understaffed, and
Hmm.
that ultimate level of just perfection and every I is dotted and T is crossed. It wasn't there. It's come down a step or two from the pandemic and all that stuff, I think.
Yeah, I feel that too. What were some of your other highlights as far as rides go at Disneyland?
Love Splash Mountain. That's one of my favorite rides here in Walt Disney World too, at Magic Kingdom. So love Splash Mountain. I like the difference of the log ride too, the way it was all the single file seat. So that was different. That was pretty cool to see. And then probably Smuggler's Run was our next favorite. And I know it's hard to, everybody wants to go Rise of the Resistance, but to me the nostalgia that I see when you see the Millennium Falcon sitting there is just incredible. And being able to sit in the cockpit, like, I get that the ride's a little goofy or whatever and it's not maybe the best experience, but it's definitely that nostalgia factor for me as a lifelong Star Wars movie fan. To feel like you are literally in the ride is just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to Splash, I'm curious because you talked about the seating arrangements. My perception is that Disneyland, the Splash Mountain there is a little bit more thrilling because the way the seats are arranged. I go on the Magic Kingdom one, where it's 2x2, and I just did not. It doesn't feel as like intense when you go down the big drop. Do either of you perceive it that way?
I'm a big time subscriber of always sit as far back as humanly possible. So whether it was Disneyland or Disney World, I'm always in the back row. So to me, I get the best experience that I can being in the back row. So I didn't feel too much of a difference on the thrill factor. They both felt pretty similar.
Okay, Allie, what do you think?
It's been too long since I've been on either Splash Mountain to really honestly verify
Okay.
that.
Okay.
The last time I went on Splash Mountain at Magic Kingdom was 2016, and I was the only one in the log because it was freezing that day. And I said, you know what?
I
I'm gonna
remember
go on
that.
Splash Mountain. There's no line.
I remember that. And next time you're here, it'll be closed already. So,
Yeah.
rip.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying real hard to convince my wife right now. I'm like, it's for the podcast. Like, just think of the
It's
podcast
research. Come
content.
on.
I could fly in on a Friday, fly home on a Sunday, and just be there to ride it on the last day. It would be awesome. There's still park reservations open. It's meant to be.
Oh yeah.
So to be
All of us.
continued if I'm able to pull that off.
I hope you are. All of us here, as soon as we heard the closing date, we were like, book that reservation. So we're
Yeah,
going on the last
absolutely.
day. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Okay, top 3 rides at California Adventure, which, I think it's a really unique park as far as US Disney parks go. So I'm curious what your favorites were there.
Yep. So this was the biggest shocker and the biggest put my foot in my mouth experience. My favorite ride in Walt Disney World is Tower of Terror, and I remember growing up when I heard that Disneyland and California Adventure were changing it and theming it over to the Guardians. I was like, why would you do that? Like it's literally the best ride at Walt Disney World. How could you do that to that ride? It's so disrespectful. It's such a cool ride. Just leave it as is. So I went into it being like, it's not going to be as good. I know I'm not going to like it. I'm going to be aggravated. And when we went on it, I was just blown away. I couldn't think of in my head, and I didn't do any of the point of view YouTube videos ahead of time. I just kind of wanted to go into it completely neutral and see what I thought. And I was trying to in my head think of like, how are they going to come up with the backstory of why this type of ride fits what's going on with the Guardians, and I couldn't think of anything, couldn't connect those dots. So as I'm coming through the queue and into the room there, and you see the video with the collector and how they explain everything, and then Rocket in the collector's office, I was like, just golf clap. Like, you guys,
I
nailed
know
it.
that
Like,
little
it's just
rocket
such
animatronic is so good.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's just that extra, like I said, that extra feeling that you get in Disney California Adventure or Disneyland is as you're leaving the office there, you see him reach back down and grab
Hmm.
Quill's Walkman. It was just like, oh man, they think of everything. It was just so enjoyable. It was I walked off that ride with the biggest smile on my face, and I was like, I just looked at my son. I was like, that was the most fun I think I've ever had on a ride at Disney. It's just so fun. It's the best experience at that park.
That's
I love that
awesome.
ride.
That's
So
Yeah,
I'm gonna ask a follow-up question, but I'm gonna warn you,
sure.
Allie has not been on Cosmic Rewind yet.
Yeah.
So
Do I need to take my headphones off for this?
I'm just gonna say be very
We
careful.
can do spoiler free,
Spoiler
sure.
Yeah,
free.
please spoiler free. I'm going on it in February. Fingers crossed.
Mission Breakout or Cosmic Rewind?
Definitely Mission Breakout. Definitely Mission
Okay.
Breakout.
That's
Interesting.
okay. Your point about why are they taking away Tower of Terror? A lot of locals felt that way too when Mission Breakout was announced. Everyone was like freaking out. I think there's still people who miss it, but
Yeah.
I think the general consensus is Mission Breakout is the better version.
Oh, interesting. I haven't been on it, and I don't know if I ever will because I don't like the drop rides. I don't do
Oh,
Tower Terror. I don't do Mission Breakout. I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've been on Tower of Terror iterations.
Yeah. Yeah.
it was
Okay.
the first time I've been surprised on a Disney ride in a
Oh,
long time too,
really?
because
Oh,
when
wow.
you get on Tower of Terror in Walt Disney World and you get in and they close the doors, you go up like really slow. You go up a level. There's a little pre-show. Then the doors close. You go to a different level and you kind of
Mhm.
float around. and there's a lot going on before you even get to the drop sequence, and like right away, like, okay, here comes the drop sequence, like it's coming. And we're sitting there in the cart, and the door closes, and you see Rocket up on the wall, and you're like, oh, all right, cool. And then boom, like instantly you drop. I was like, what? What just happened? So it was, like I said, just not only was it the most fun I've ever had, but like a legit, like, I did not see that coming type of surprise. So it was awesome. Just an awesome experience.
That's really cool. Yeah, you're making me want to go on that ride. I didn't get to go on that when we visited over the summer because I don't know. I think it's a 40-inch height requirement. I remember my son was tall enough for it, but I was like, he just is about to turn 4. I don't think he's ready for that.
Yeah, it could scare the daylights out of anybody that little.
Yeah, yeah. What were some other highlights at California Adventure for you guys?
Sure. So our second favorite ride was the Incredicoaster,
Yeah.
and it ended up being basically like our third day there. We basically spent probably 75-80% of the day just doing Mission Breakout, Incredicoaster, Mission Breakout, Incredicoaster, just back and forth, back and forth. So
I
it was
love
it was
it.
a completely different experience. I've never gone to the parks with somebody like that and just been like, we can do whatever you want, buddy. I don't care. There's nothing here that I want to do except just make you happy and do the rides that you want. So
Oh,
I had a 9-year-old driving the stick all day around the park, and it was just like I said, it was Mission Breakout and Incredicoaster, Mission Breakout, Incredicoaster, and it was so much fun. It was awesome. So Incredicoaster, the fact that they play the music in your ears while you're on the ride, to me, just takes it up a whole nother level. It just makes it so much more fun, and it's one of those things where you can't think of like, okay, so you go through a tunnel a couple times, like how cool is that? But classic Disney Imagineering, like they find a way to just put just the right characters with just the right little clips in there. They even throw the smellitizers at you there with
Mhm.
the cookie smell. Like it's just, again, just mwah, just classic Disney perfection on the ride design. Just absolutely loved it. And to me, there's nothing like the Incredicoaster here on the East Coast in Walt Disney World.
Mhm.
That's a legit, like, fun roller coaster ride. I grew up. I have an aunt and uncle that live in Ohio. So every summer for 1 week, we'd go out and see them in Ohio, and they have this little amusement park that a lot of people don't even know of, but it's like a hidden gem. It's the most roller coasters in a single amusement park in the world, and
Wow.
it's randomly in Ohio of all places, and we used to
what's
go
the
there
name of
every
this
summer.
park?
So Cedar Point, Cedar
Okay.
Point. So definitely look that up. It's worth the trip to the middle of nowhere in Ohio to do it. It's that fun. So I was doing that 1 week every summer growing up. So I was a thrill junkie, love the roller coasters, and this was the first time in a Disney park where I was like, wow, that's a legit roller coaster right there. That's exactly what you're looking for as a roller coaster fan.
Yeah, the two of us used to go single rider on that over and
All the
over and over
time.
again.
Sure.
All summer long.
Oh, it was the best. Those were
And I
fun
feel
times.
Absolutely.
like I feel like it's a really good like beginner's looping coaster.
Yeah.
Like if
Yep.
you've never been on an upside down coaster before, that's a really good one to start with.
Sure. Yeah. That's a good point.
Mhm.
And riding at
Um,
night too is a whole different
oh
experience too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So we did that just kind of by accident. Just one night we were kind of walking there, and I think we grabbed an ice cream, and they're like, "Oh, why don't the ride was only like 30 minutes at the time. Like, oh, we should just jump on that again."
Nice.
And like right after we came through is when they started shutting it down to get
Yeah.
ready for World of Color. So it was the one and only time we actually got to do it at nighttime, but having it all lit up was just an even better. If
Yeah.
you had to rank my favorite Disney California Adventure rides, Incredicoaster at night would be 2, and then Incredicoaster during the day is 3.
Yeah. I know. I wish they could find a way to operate it while World of Color is going on because it's so good at
Oh,
night.
it'd be
But
incredible.
oh yeah. And then I'm guessing Web Slingers was a hit with your son at least.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, for me, probably not my favorite ride of all time. It really wears out your forearms more so
Yeah.
than I love the competition rides like that. I love the Toy Story ride there where you're trying to collect the points there too. So love that aspect of it. But yeah, that was my number 3 ride just because of how much my little guy enjoyed it. So he had a
Oh,
blast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's great.
So,
yeah,
were
absolutely.
there any rides that were kind of like didn't hit the mark for you?
I don't think so. We like I said, with letting him kind of steer the ship and do whatever he wanted, we he skipped the teacups and Peter Pan and all those like slow classic rides that's like the one thing I would probably change if I go back in the future is I'd love to kind of take my time and go through and try all the things that we don't have here in Walt Disney World. But he just wanted to do the fun things that he were like on his list. So we didn't really have anything that we definitely did not like. But the only ride I could think of off the top of my head that I was like, oh, this one just isn't is actually kind of different. I feel like the Walt Disney World is actually better, or the Walt Disney World version is actually better, and that was the Haunted Mansion. I feel
Oh,
like the
Hmm.
I feel like the Haunted Mansion in Walt Disney World, you get more time in the Doom Buggy. Like some of
hmm.
the stuff that you
Yes.
see in the queue in California is actually part of the ride in
Yeah.
Walt Disney World. So I feel like a
Yes.
little bit longer ride in Walt Disney World. So I guess if I'm checking the boxes here, that's one point I can definitely put in the Walt Disney World column.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough call for me because I like them both so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
But you'll have to go back and check it out during Halloween or Christmas to do the Nightmare Before Christmas version because that's
Yeah.
way
Definitely.
different.
Yeah.
Okay, so next, some more in-depth questions. So, going in, are you just following your son's schedule, or did you have kind of a general park strategy that you guys worked on together, or how did that go? And how did it differ from your Walt Disney World strategy?
So when we do Walt Disney World, we have a much larger range of kids. So we're doing our best to kind of keep the whole party into it and interested and happy and trying to rotate, do some rides that are a little bit more geared towards the older kids and then making sure the little kids get some rides in too, that they don't have to just kind of sit and wait for everybody to come off. So being able to be there in Disneyland with just him one on one and have nobody else we need to keep happy or give what they want for the day, it was a completely different strategy than like I've done at any time before. So it was
Yeah.
cool.
I feel like that's really special to have that at Disneyland specifically because, Walt built the park because he was sitting there saying, like, I want to be involved with my daughters, and take them somewhere. So that's really cool that you got to experience that with your son at the place where it all started.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So, other than web slingers, what were some of your must-dos going into the trip, and were you able to get them all done?
Yep. The only other thing that was like we absolutely have to do it was Cars Land. We wanted to check out
Oh,
that
Yes.
whole
yes.
section of the park. And as much as I love Pandora here, or some of the other like even Galaxy's Edge itself, it's in Toy Story Land here too. Like they're great lands. The theming is excellent, but it's not something that you've seen directly in the movies or the TV shows. So it's like you walk around Galaxy's Edge and you're like, yeah, I guess, this is really cool. And everybody looks like they're kind of from the Star Wars universe, but it's nothing that you've seen in a movie before. You don't feel like you're literally walking on a movie set. But when you walk down that main street there in Cars Land, it just blows your like you literally feel like you just stepped into the Pixar movie.
Yeah.
Everything looks exactly the same as you would
Mhm.
picture it in your head. So it's a cool experience like I've never had at a Disney park.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And
What did you sorry, go ahead, Allie.
I was going to say, did you notice on the traffic light that every third light is longer?
No, I
Because they
didn't.
baked that in
That's
too.
Yeah,
incredible. Incredible.
I know.
I love that stuff. I love it.
I was gonna ask what you thought of the rides in Cars Land.
Cars Land, we didn't do like the kiddie rides. We just kind of focused on the Radiator Springs Racers and what is it? Test Track here for
Mhm.
us is a big ride for our kids. That's one of their favorites. They want to do that 10 times when we're in Epcot. They love
Yeah.
designing their car, I think even more so than the ride. But either way, it gets us on the ride a
Yeah.
ton when we're in Epcot. And again, like the theming, 10 out of 10 or even 11 out of 10 for the ride. But for the actual like thrilling experience of it, I felt like a little step down from what you get on Test Track. But that was fine because just the theming is to me what you enjoy more so than the actual thrill for that type of ride. So
Mhm.
Yeah, we haven't done our test track versus racers episode yet, and I'm like thinking ahead, and I don't know which way I'm gonna go because one of them, like you said, has the speed, but the other one has such good theming. It's like which one's
Yeah.
more important, and I don't know.
yeah, yep.
Okay, where did you end up eating? And like, did you make any reservations? Did you mobile order? Did you venture outside the parks?
Yep. So we did not venture outside the parks. Everything we ate was in the parks,
So hang
other than
on,
the other than the breakfast at
you're
the
telling me
hotel.
you were in California and you didn't go to In-N-Out.
No, we didn't. We didn't.
You're
For
killing
Nope.
shame.
I've done it before in the past, and my little guy's not. That's what you'll find out is this is probably going to be your like most boring section of this episode. Is my 9-year-old is we call him the king of carbs. He's skinny as a rail, but like that's all he eats is just bread and pasta and just literally like the most basic of basic carbs. He'll eat fruit too, but like even that's kind of it's like grapes and strawberries. But other than that, he has just got the most boring palate in the world. He won't eat any chicken, any hamburgers, pizza, none of
Oh
that.
man.
It is just basic. So we were able to basically just stick right to the quick service the entire time. And his new nickname that he got in Disneyland was the king of churros because he must have
Oh,
eaten
Yes, they're
probably
so
50
good.
he must have eaten 57 churros while we were there. It was like every time we walked by our car, he's like, "Can I get another churro?" Sure.
did you try
Absolutely.
any of the specialty ones they have, or did you just do the
I
plain
think we
ones?
tried everything under the sun other than like the like spicy or like Tabasco like type of flavored
Yeah.
ones, but
Oh my gosh.
chocolate chip and French toast and cinnamon sugar, like everything, every option that was there, we tried it. Oreo, we tried them all.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yep.
churros at Disneyland are so much better than the
So
Disney World churros.
That's yeah, not even close. Like, cause that trip, like he became obsessed with those. So when we went to the Disney World trip in August, he was like, "Where can I find a
I
churro?
remember
Please tell
that.
me that they have churros here." And yeah, and we went to a couple of different places. He's like, just sitting there, like eating it, like just so like you could just tell he wasn't
Oh,
like depressed, but he was just like, "This just isn't the same. It's
It's
just
just
it's
not
not
the
really
the
same."
same.
not.
Yeah, I've had a couple churros here and I'm like, man, this is not a Disneyland churro, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't understand why that is. I maybe it's their supplier or something. I don't know.
Yep.
Proximity to
Yeah. That's
Mexico.
the biggest. That's the biggest takeaway from that trip is just there's so many little tiny things like that, like a churro, that you're just blown away at how much better and different it really can be on the other side of the country.
Mhm.
What was your favorite place to eat other than the churro
Probably,
cart?
yes, yeah. Other than the churro cards, probably Pim's Test Kitchen because I think he got probably 6 of the giant pretzels while we are there. Probably two. I think
Okay.
it was like two pretzels per day. So
Wow.
pretzels fit under that basic plain carb on his menu. So yeah, so he wolfed down multiple pretzels while we are there on top of the churros.
I'm curious, this is going kind of off topic, but since you mentioned the test kitchen, what did you think of Marvel Land or Avengers Campus? I have my own thoughts on it, but I'm curious what you thought about it.
I liked it. I liked it. I feel like it's a hard one to kind of stretch out and really kind of make you feel like I think you're in the Marvel movies, but to me the thing it's almost like like what you get like what I was saying with Cars Land and when doing Radiator Springs, like it might not be like the best rides or the best land set up for rides, but they make what they lack in like the thrilling part of the rides, they completely make up for on the theming. And in Walt Disney World, the only way you're going to see a character is if you wait in line for 20 or 30
Mhm.
minutes or you do a character meal at the restaurant. But to walk through the park, that first morning when we rope dropped at DCA and we were walking into the park, we stopped at one point just to try to get our bearings on where the line was actually kind of starting for web slingers. And while we were staying there, Spider-Man literally walked right by, and my
Oh,
son had a
cool.
Spider-Man sweatshirt, and he like leaned in and like kind of patted him on the shoulder, like as he was just walking right by, and it was just like, whoa, like a character just touched my kid. Like that doesn't
Mhm.
happen in Walt Disney World
Oh,
unless you go out of your way to go find
Yeah.
them. And then anytime we were walking through or just sitting there at Pim's Test Kitchen, just kind of people watching while we're eating our 47 pretzels, you just constantly would see the heroes come out and grab little kids and take them for a walk across the land, and the faces that I saw on those kids with those superheroes is exactly what I saw with my kids back in 2016 on that first trip, and it was all those like memories come rushing back, and you're just like so happy for that family in that moment because you're like, that's it. That's that look. That look on that kid's face is absolutely what it's all about. So they just do such a good job at that on in Avengers Campus there. So
Yeah. When we were there, my kids, they're 4 and 18 months now, and we were there 6 months ago. They don't know anything about Marvel, and really, I was just going to check out the new ride. But even when we were just walking through, I was like, wow, there's a lot of characters here, and just that was really, and
yeah,
I imagine for a Marvel fan, that's even better. But yeah, my takeaway on Marvel Land, I was like, this is cool, but I feel like it's missing something. Like
yeah,
there's a lot of like
yeah. There's
open space and like a building in the back. I was like, what happens in this building? Like, why is there this big building? What's going on here? But I know since then they've announced the e-ticket ride is coming eventually. Big question mark on that. So I think it'll make the land a lot more complete. But I'm totally with you on the characters, and I think that's a big difference between Disneyland and Disney World overall is characters everywhere.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of differences, what do you think are or what are your thoughts on some of the other differences between Disneyland and Disney World, kind of on a macro level?
Macro level, I would say it's almost hard to kind of put into words, and I've been asked this one before, and the best way I can describe it is I felt like you kind of felt that like Walt magic or that connection to Walt Disney himself at that park
Mhm.
more so than you feel in Walt Disney World. And I don't know if it's just because you see the videos of him kind of literally walking around in the parks and
Mm.
being very hands-on and knowing that he never got to be there for the opening of Walt Disney World, or what the reasoning is behind it. But again, I another example of me just kind of guessing wrong here before the trip. I was going into it feeling like, okay, it's going to be a little bit older. It's a smaller park. There's only two lands there, so it's probably going to feel like a little bit more kind of run down, a little bit older, kind of worn out almost type of feeling. And again, when I got there, it was just could not have been more wrong. Was just blown away at the attention to detail and all those things where it kind of felt like Disney World had been slipping a little bit. They were hitting all those marks on that trip in Disneyland. I didn't see anything missing along the way. It seemed like they were nailing everything. And like I said, no matter where you go, especially in Disneyland more so than DCA, anytime you're walking around that Main Street area and by the Matterhorn and through Fantasyland, those older sections of the park, you're just like, whew, like I feel like Walt's like
Hmm.
his ghost is around here somewhere. He's enjoying all of us being here, enjoying his park.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe that's why Main Street is one of my favorite lands in Disneyland. Allie laughed at me one time.
Yep.
She's like, Main Street's one of your favorite lands? Like, it's so classic. It feels good.
Absolutely. I could sit on Main Street all day and just people watch and just hang
Yeah,
out. It's
yeah,
just you just live off that Disney vibe.
yeah, yeah. Main Street at Magic Kingdom kind of stresses me out because I feel like people are always just going, 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 going. But Main Street at Disneyland is like comforting and it's like it's giving you a hug. It feels good to be there.
It does. I like it.
Now, on a smaller level, why don't you touch on some of the differences that you noticed between some of the rides or like the restaurants, the castle, like whatever you want to discuss there?
Yeah, sure. Micro of the castle is easily the biggest change. And
Mhm.
growing up, going to Walt Disney World and seeing so many people kind of walk into Magic Kingdom for the first time and kind of peek around the corner and see the castle for the first time, and you could just tell like they were just blown away at this amazing castle. And I kind of think like it's the castle, like it's the castle we've always had. Like it's not that breathtaking really. But then now that I've been to Disneyland, it's like, oh, okay, now I get it. Like if you've always gone to Disneyland and that's always been your park, when you come into Magic Kingdom for the first time, yeah, you are definitely going to be blown away. That castle is massive, just
Yeah.
so different on the eyes. And that was the weird thing coming into Main Street and that town square area for the first time in Disneyland. It's like your brain thinks it's in Magic Kingdom. It's like everything from the outside here quickly looks exactly the same, but then you look down Main Street from right when you cross in, and you're like, wait, I can't even see the castle yet. Like what? It's like I feel like I'm an episode of Carmen San Diego, and she stole the castle.
Yeah, yeah. Is there one castle you prefer over the other?
I think I gotta go classic. My East Coast castle. It's the castle I've always known. So nothing against the Disneyland one. There's definitely I can tell a ton of nostalgia for it, and I have nothing bad to say about that castle. But if I gotta pick one, I gotta pick the one I've always known my entire life growing up. So
That's
Understandable.
fair. That's fair.
yeah.
And this is your first time visiting New Orleans Square. What did you think of New Orleans Square?
Great, great. The only downfall there was Pirates ended up being on refurbishment while we were there. So it's
No.
like the number one ride
Oh
was like, okay,
man.
if we're comparing the two, what's the number one that I really want to hit? And it was Pirates. And when I booked the trip originally, it wasn't on the schedule, and then something came up along the way and it ended up getting put on the schedule, and I
Dang.
didn't find out until literally we were in the park that day. And it was like a double whammy too, because again, I just didn't even think of it. I was so focused on the crowd calendars
Hmm.
and just picking whatever dates looked like the lightest, that I wasn't kind of thinking outside the box and being like, okay, do any of these dates kind of stick out for any other reason? And the the day that we did Disneyland was May the 4th. So it
Oh
was
gosh.
Star Wars Day in the park. So the park closed early that day.
Oh gosh.
And as we're like approaching the turnstiles in the morning, I'm looking around. I'm like, man, there's a lot of people with lightsabers out and dressed up in like full Star Wars garb. I'm like, I don't see this like back in Hollywood studios. Like you see a couple people here and there that are kind of all in on the Star Wars get up, but I'm like, there's a lot of people that are over the top Star Wars dressed up right now. I was like, what is going on? And then like literally we turn around, there's a giant poster. It was like Happy May the 4th Day. And I was like, no,
Oh
why did you do this?
no.
Oh,
But it ended up working out fine. So he was so tired from the travel. And then that
Mhm.
first day we did rope drop to park close that whole first day there in DCA. So I think the park closed at like 6 or 7 o'clock or so, or something like that on the second day there. So he was totally fine going back to the room, and he was out like a light the second his
Yeah.
head hit the pillow. So it ended up working out fine. We got basically all the rides in that we wanted to get to do. But yeah, it was definitely a bummer not getting to do Pirates. That was the number one.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I gotta try the Pirates. Everybody says the Disneyland version is better. So I was bumming on that one.
Well, now you have to go back for Pirates and Haunted Mansion Holiday. So you
yeah.
got at least two
Yep.
reasons to go back.
Perfect. Sounds good.
um, did you go on Indiana Jones?
Yep, we hit that. And I'm not a fan of the dinosaur ride here, so I went into it kind of knowing it's basically the same thing, just with a different theme to it. But I love the Indiana Jones theming over the dinosaur version. If I have to pick one or the other, I'm picking Indiana Jones 100 out of 100 times. But
Mhm.
that was probably I kind of go back on something I said earlier. That was the one ride that I did feel like was kind of missing a step. Like
Hmm.
it felt old because there were a lot of the elements weren't working right. And
Yeah.
somebody was
Oh,
saying like something, there was like a part with snakes or something like that to come out. And I was like, nope, I never saw any snakes. The boulder didn't come out when we
Oh
went
man.
through. So yeah, so a lot of those little elements, but it was still enough going there. I was like, okay, it kind of felt like our Splash Mountain here. I feel like when you do Splash Mountain, it's very clear that they're like, we already know we're going to change it. So anything
Yeah.
that
So
breaks,
why
like we're just
bother?
going to.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I felt like with Indiana Jones. Was like, well, there's like three things already broken, so that broke too. Just leave it.
Just leave it. Yeah. I feel
Yeah,
like that ride's
yeah.
been a money pit since day one because when it opened, there was an effect. I don't know if you remember this part where you're going across like it looks like a rope bridge.
Mhm.
And when that ride opened, they were supposed to have like a dry ice machine on the roof that was like dropping dry ice on the sides to make it look like
Oh
the
wow.
temple was collapsing.
Yep.
Obviously, that has not ever really worked, so they turned that off pretty quickly because it couldn't produce like dry ice quick enough. So I feel like, for the past almost 30 years, that ride has just been plagued with problems. And it's
The
unfortunate
queue
because
was
it's
awesome though. The
oh,
queue the queue was incredible.
oh
yeah.
yeah, it's a
It's
great
really well
queue.
done.
It's so fun.
And did you get on Space Mountain?
I don't think we did Space Mountain while we're there.
Oh,
Space isn't. I know. Sorry. I know that's one of the, like my hot podcasting takes is I hate Space Mountain. I hate it. And again, I think it's because I'm just so spoiled growing up going to that park in Ohio that like I've been on some of the best roller coasters in the world from this park in Ohio. So to like be in Disney World and have everybody like, isn't this a fun roller coaster? It's like, no, not really. It's like 28 miles an hour, I think, is the top speed. And something about being in that darkness the whole time, like I constantly feel like I'm about to get a metal beam in my face. So
Yeah.
kind of a little uneasy feeling there. But yeah, I'm just unfortunately, no offense, not a fan of Space Mountain. And
well,
it's
okay.
like I said, my little guy was driving. He didn't have any intentions of doing it, so we just kind of skipped it. And it never. I don't think we ever saw the ride time go below an hour, anyway. So it
Yeah.
just kind of worked out. It was like he didn't really want to do it. It's not a ride I really go for or enjoy anyway. So I was like, meh, we'll skip it.
But Disneyland space is so much better than
It
Disney
really
World
is.
space.
It
I
It's
really
know.
is.
so much better.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it was like a half an hour, we probably would have done it. But like I said, it never dropped
Yeah.
below an hour
Okay,
while we
that's
were there.
fair.
So we're like, we're just not gonna do it.
Yeah.
And
But
we
see,
rope dropped Galaxy's Edge because like I said,
okay.
my little guy at that point he had not been on Rise of the Resistance, so
Yeah.
we did that. We rope dropped that.
Did you go
Good
on
call.
Matterhorn?
Yep, we did do Matterhorn and didn't. No offense again if you guys like that one, but it fe- it felt like outdoor Space Mountain to
Yeah.
Yeah,
me. I just
it is.
That's
didn't
pretty much what
just
it is.
yeah.
The
So
track
not
layout is
Beautiful.
not a
almost exactly the same, actually.
oh, okay. Well, yeah, there you go. So it makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
my not what my as I get older here, my back is excited
Yeah.
for. That's not my
Yeah.
kind of ride.
That's a tough one to do. It's not. Oh.
Yeah. Especially the day before I was on Mission Breakout in a credit coaster and credit coaster is just so smooth. The Mission Breakout instantly became my number one favorite ride in all the parks. So to
Yeah.
then go on those two rides was like or go on one of them, it was like, ugh,
Yeah.
this ride's not for me. I
Understandable.
love the history love the history of it. Love seeing the Matterhorn Mountain. Love the music playing in the queue and all that.
Mhm.
Just the ride itself, just not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. We love it because it's a classic, not because it's comfortable to ride.
Yeah.
So, what would you say that if you were talking to another Walt Disney World regular who's going to Disneyland or California Adventure for the first time, what would you say they have to do?
I would definitely say any ride that exists in both parks, that should be your number one thing to try. It's so that was the most fun part of it that I had, besides obviously just being there with my son and getting to see his excitement from everything. But for me, just me personally, I love doing that. Like, let me do both rides and then contrast and compare on how they compare to each other. So I would say make sure you hit as many of those double rides as you can, and then be able to compare them to each other and make your little list of which one you like better.
We are all about that.
Yeah. A theme
um,
you guys can appreciate, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would do differently for your next trip?
Yeah, I think I would like to go. That's the one thing I've learned is since starting the podcast, I've had a chance to go to Disney World with my wife alone once, and as much as I absolutely love being at the parks with the kids and seeing the magic through their eyes, I'm now very comfortable in my adult skin to say, as a guy with a Disney podcast, I'm a proud Disney adult as well. So I
Yes.
love going to the parks without the kids as well. So I would love to, as much as I love to get the whole gang of six out there and try the parks with them, I would definitely enjoy going with some adult friends that I've met through this podcasting journey and just be able to go through and literally do. I want to do all the boring fantasy rides that are slow and just get to.
Mhm.
I just want to experience every single thing there that I didn't get to experience the first time I was there.
Yeah.
What is something that you think Disneyland is doing right that Disney World could implement?
So it's hard to kind of put a finger on it, but I guess it's kind of like what I was saying before. Is it's hard to describe, but it just feels like they're better at plussing things up
Mhm.
and maybe just the character meet and greets is alone like that because that's what Disney World was like for me growing up was being able to see the characters walking around and interacting with you. I'd love to see those elements come from Disneyland and come back to the East Coast and get put into the parks here.
Yeah, I am struggling to understand why they don't have that here, and this is me just like spitballing ideas. I think maybe they are afraid that the characters would get so hounded by the tourists that come in nowadays. I guess versus at
Yeah.
Disneyland, it's a lot of locals, who are like, "Oh, I'm just walking into the park. Hey, Mickey," not necessarily like, "Oh my gosh, it's Mickey Mouse." But I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just my idea, but
Do you remember when it changed, when they stopped doing it that way? I don't
I
remember.
have
I
no
feel like
idea.
our first trip back in a while with the kids was that 2016, and I feel like even then it was kind of how it is now. It's kind of they're in their set spot, and that's
And
your only
that's
chance
that.
to see them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
The other thing that maybe could be happening, I wonder if something happened like on the labor side of it. Maybe like the union said we're not gonna walk around in
yeah.
this heat or something like that. I don't know though. I have no idea. On the flip side of that, what's something you think Disney World is doing right that Disneyland could implement?
As far as implementing it, it would probably be hard. It would be, I mean, basically impossible to pull off. But my favorite thing about Disney World is that bubble aspect, or that bubble feeling that you get. I love going to Walt Disney World and feeling like it's almost like going to another planet. Like I just check out, I can leave my wallet and all the stuff that I'm constantly checking. Like, do I have this? Do I have that? Do I have this? All that stuff gets left behind in the safe of the hotel. And I feel like I'm in an all inclusive resort, and I can travel to all these different hotels and restaurants and 4 different park options and water park options and mini golf. I can literally do whatever I want, and just it's all right there on my Magic Band.
Yeah, I wish Disneyland had more of that too, and I think that they've tried to do that a little bit more, but it hasn't really hit very well, and maybe it is because more locals are coming in that aren't staying for, a week at a time or whatever. I don't know, but it would be nice to see something.
I also feel like there's a size
Sure.
issue at play there.
Oh
Disneyland
yeah.
Resort is so much smaller too.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
And
Well,
location, it's smack in the middle of the city
yeah.
versus in the middle of the swamp.
Yeah. Well, there
Yeah,
is
exactly. That's what I was
talk.
saying. I don't think you could pull it off.
Yeah.
No, there is talk that Angels Stadium, like the Angels might move to Long Beach or something like that. So if that happens, I mean, hey, they could buy Angel Stadium and, somehow connect the monorail over there.
The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim and Long Beach. Oh
Yeah.
boy.
I see
Let's
what
just
that,
add more
The
cities
name
onto
gets
that
even
team
longer.
name.
right? I know that's like a very far-fetched idea, but hey, stranger things have happened in the Disney universe,
Get the Skyliner out there. Connect it with the Skyliner.
right? That would be really cool. They took away our Skyway buckets in the 90s, so we need to bring them back. Is there anything else you want to talk about as far as Disney World versus Disneyland? Any final thoughts?
No, I think you guys pulled it all out of me. Those are a good list of questions there. I think we got it all.
Do you have any plans to go back to either park anytime soon?
At the moment, nothing is officially on the books, but like I said, my real life job is I'm a sales manager, so I'm giving my wife a new sales pitch every day to try to convince her like it makes sense
You
for me
have
to
your
go do
finger
Splash
on that.
Mountain.
You have your finger on that buy button for the tickets, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's like already saved in the cart. Like I'm just waiting for the green light from her. And I'm checking the park reservations every day. I'm like, please still be open. I'm like, yes, it's still green, still green.
I understand that.
Yep. So we'll see. Fingers crossed we can get that one checked off. But other than that, we have talked about that now that the podcast is up and running, that I'd love to get down there for at least once a year to try to meet up with other podcasters that are in the area, and meet some new people face to face, and
Mhm.
have, like I said, those adult only Disney vacations, and have
Yeah.
some Disney adult fun in the parks too.
Yeah. Have you ever done a Disney cruise? This is very off topic.
No, that's fine. Nope, have not done a cruise yet. Nope.
Okay. I just ask because cruising is very much on my mind. And I'm very in the preliminary stages of researching. So
Yeah, from the seasick girl.
listen, there's medication for that. I'll be okay.
We went on one in, what was it, 2000? So we were kids. I was 8. CJ is slightly older than that, and it was a blast. So CJ was seasick the entire time.
Oh,
No,
no.
I wasn't. I don't remember that.
You were seasick most of the time. It was hurricane season.
It was August when we went, but yeah, I'm wanting to take my children. I keep seeing the Florida resident rates, and I'm like, come on, that's a good rate. Come on, but we just can't do it right now. We'll get there eventually.
I don't know if I've heard anybody that's gone on a Disney cruise that said it was a bad experience and that they hated it or it didn't go well. So
Right, yeah.
Go for it. Give it a whirl.
I gotta see. I'm in the same boat as you, though.
Podcast content. It's podcast content.
I gotta convince the husband. I'm in the same boat, though. See, because I've priced it out and I said, look, here's where we're going. Just tell me yes, and I'll just purchase it, and it's fine. And I'm waiting for the green light.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm now planning a trip to Cedar Point.
There you go. Absolutely. Must do.
Yeah. We're a roller coaster household, so.
Oh, you'll love it. That'll be the best Google you have of the night.
All right. So where can our listeners find you on social media, listen to your podcast, etc.? Give us all the plugs. Shameless plugging time.
All the plugs. All right, here we go. So I try to make it as simple as possible, but part of the planning out of the show process was I wanted to come up with a name for the show that it could just be like very simple. Like I didn't want to have to be like, okay, it's at the ... _ whatever. Like I didn't want to have to do all those. I didn't want to have any abbreviations. I just wanted the name of the show to be everything. So anywhere you want to look for me, you can find it under the DMSW Podcast. All spelled out, no dots, no spaces, nothing. So at the DMSW Podcast on Instagram is probably my number one back and forth, talking with people the most there. Or if you want to listen to the podcast itself, it's in all the basic Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, all those. And same thing, if you just type in the DMSW Podcast, you'll find us.
Well, now I want to hear your podcast name in Morse code so we get the dots and the dashes.
Oh, I studied Morse code for a little bit.
I'm just kidding.
I don't think I could come up with it off the top of my head, but I was learning Morse code for a little bit a couple months ago.
Why?
Why not?
Are you joining the military or like the CIA or something? Like
No. It's come up before. We've needed it before.
Okay.
Now that you say it, I have to learn the Morse code for DMSW. That way, if I ever get kidnapped, I can Morse code DMSW. So when the police find, like, no, he's got Johnny from the DMSW podcast. We must get him.
Oh my gosh. Oh man. From Disney to Morse code, just like that. That's how we roll over here.
I just picture a detective like typing in DMSW into Google, and he's like, I don't know. I just keep getting this Disney podcast. I don't know what it means.
It's a quest. Anyways. Well, thank you for joining us and sharing about your trip to Disneyland. Pleasure. And maybe we'll have you on next time you take a trip, your Splash Mountain trip that I am like willing into existence here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you said you were going to be there that day. So that'll be my next sales pitch to my wife tomorrow. Like, but the Park2Park podcast is going to be there. I can meet with them and ride the ride together.
Yeah, we booked our January 22nd where we booked it because it's a Sunday. Awesome. And so it worked out.
For the record, I will not be there. I will be at home in Texas.
Sorry.
But CJ will be there.
Yeah, I'll be there. Anyways, so we are also, to our listeners out there, if you would like to come on the show, send us an email at park2parkpod@gmail.com, DM us on Instagram at park2parkpod with the number 2. And our next episode, Alli, would you like to share?
Well, it won't be coming out on May the 4th, but we will be talking about the 4th or the Force. It's our Star Wars episode.
Yay!
Oh, I should make sure that I wear like my Leia buns and like.
No, we already have our Leia buns on.
Yeah, but I've got the Leia beanie.
Okay, your beanie. Got it.
And I have the Leia hoodie.
Okay, well, you can dress like a Star Wars character, and I will sit here and pretend like I know what you're talking about.
I do that all the time, CJ. Don't worry.
I know. Anyways, join us next time as we talk all things Star Wars in the parks Galaxy's Edge, Star Tours, and other Star Wars experiences that can be had in the parks. And we'll see you next time on the Park2Park podcast.
Thanks for joining us.